if we're going to talk about this. BJ's Space and Rocket Review. Alright, well, let's take a look. What? It was a successful... Why would they do that? Hey, Sean, what's going on? Yeah, everything's fine, dude. How are you? Good to see you, buddy. Stock price tends to drop after every launch for some reason. Same with Rocket Lab and Astra. Pump and dump, perhaps. I mean, I'm not the stock guy, dude. There's actually a streamer that does education, education about stocks and stuff. It's called The Stock Guy. Stocky's really good. He would be awesome at this. I would be curious to hear what he has to say. You know, I mean, guys, look at the spike over the 5-day, right? So that was their test. I don't know if that was their test launch. They did a test launch a little while back. From a couple of days ago. But, it seems like, you know, from a public investor standpoint, that because this is based off of confidence and stock people aren't experts in spaceflight, it seems like they have high confidence and high value in the company until the rocket actually launches, right? And it looks like people... Yeah, that's launch right there, right at 11:30. If I had to guess, this is people that don't know much about spaceflight that are dumping the stock because they see that the stock has high value, and if it fails, you're never going to see a return on investment. That's my guess, but I don't know this stuff, dudes. What about around May 24th? Yeah. Weird. I mean, that just goes to show you that the stock market is based entirely on confidence. And confidence does not sometimes equal reality, which is weird. Maybe it's group manipulation. I mean, O-Force, that's what I mean about pump and dump it, right? So, if you're looking at this, right? And once again, I am not an economy guy. Dudes, that's not my department. I'm sorry, but if I'm saying something wrong, let me know. Say, you know, you bought in like 100,000 of this, right? That's, what is that, 25,000 shares, give or take, right? You know, say you bought in here and it goes up here. That is a significant amount of money. That's a significant monetary increase right there. So, you know, you buy in, the stock goes up, everybody else buys in, the stock goes up even more, and then you cash out. And you make a ton of money, and everybody else gets kind of stuck with that. Right? Like, oh, tick back up. Yeah, they work off hype, and the hype is basically right up until the, right during the launch, which is interesting. That's very strange.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
So much of the stock market is competing algorithms at this point. Rocket Lab lost like a quarter of their stock value following a scrub. As someone who bought the stocks just to support the space companies, I think this has a lot to do with people in the industry buying into these companies not knowing anything about spaceflight. It shows. AST Mobile stock, they got nuked by a false news article. Oh. I know people that work at AST Mobile. That's not good. I know some folks that work there. That's... Oh, they're not going to be happy about that. On the bright side, now we know when to buy space stock. Yep. You buy low when the rocket's high up in space. So time for the article? Yeah, I'd be a little pissed, to say the least. I'd be a little pissed. What was the article about, Forge, if you don't mind me asking? There's a hole in the left side of your shirt. You can see right through it. Might it be the part of the Italian flag that's green? Because green screen? No, that's nothing to do with it. I mean, see, Kraken, I mean, you're not wrong, but also, I mean, no, I'm pretty sure it's a rip in the shirt. Yeah, so my skin is green now, okay. Yes. You know what? I'm just going to leave you with that information, and we're going to move on to the next subject. Oh, man, I'm trying to wake up. I'm tired, man. I'm tired. Hit the halftime buzzer. I'm tired. Buy high, hold to the moon, I guess, if NASA was publicly traded. All right, what is Mike saying? AST Space Mobile, ASTS stock plunged as much as 30% in trading today after the company issued a response to an article published more than 2 weeks ago, which raised concerns about the company's burn rate and fundraising plans. The Merger Market article incorrectly stated that we have a burn rate for operational expenses of around $40 million annually. As we have previously disclosed, we are currently using the cash at a rate of approximately $40 million per quarter for adjusted operating expenses. We understand that Market Merger attempted to correct their error in later versions of the article by changing annually to quarterly, but did not change operational expenses to adjusted operational expenses, which is the incorrect line item. Uh-oh. I don't know what you're talking about, Gaw. The Merger Market article stated that the company's audit opinion validated our projections of more than 12 months in cash. The statement was intended to state that our independent auditors had issued their audit report with respect to our financial statements as of and for the fiscal years ended December 31st, 2021 and 2022 on March 2023 without a going concern paragraph. We issued our interim financial statements for the quarter ended in March 31st, 2023 without a going concern qualification. Our need for capital in the future may result in our independent auditors or management expressing substantial doubt that our ability to continue as a going concern in future financial... Oh... Guys, am I understanding this right that, you know, the Market Merger article said, okay, let me try to reduce this to its base element. And once again, not the biggest economist here. I'm not very good at this. So the Merger Market article said that these guys are basically losing money hand over fist. And AST Mobile released a press statement saying, no, we're not losing $100 million a year. We're losing $200 million a year. You have no idea what you're talking about. Am I seeing that correctly? $100 million and $200 million, for the sake of this, is actually made up. I'm just making up numbers. Yeah. Why would they? Are you done testing to fix his new features and challenges? Journey, I haven't played KSP today, dude. I think in their effort to be transparent, they devalued their own company. They said, no, these guys are lying. We're not broke. We're super broke. What are you, stupid? Like, I think that's what's going on here. The merger market article indicated that we are engaging with strategics to fund future launches. Engaging with potential strategic partners through non-dilutive sources as well as equity. Hang on one second. Give me 1 second, dudes. Not 40 million, 160 million per year, so they are burning cash. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's see. So they're engaging with potential strategic partners through non-dilutive sources as well as equity. Non-dilutive means that they do not want to. Chat, does non-dilutive mean that they don't want to sell too much stock in the company so they don't dilute the stock? Am I understanding that correctly? And they want a strategic partner that's going to put more equity in the company? Means those are non-voting stocks. What is a non-voting stock? They aren't selling a stake in the company. Okay. Debt bonds, not stock sales. Okay, so yeah, selling stock would dilute the value of the company, and they're trying to not do that. Okay, cool. Racing forward with potential strategic partners and exploring a range of options for bringing in revenue. As previously disclosed, we require a substantial amount of capital, and we expect such requirements will continue to increase in the future. We are regularly in discussions with various financial sources to enhance liquidity, including strategic partners, and have considered and will continue to consider numerous options to raise capital. We may raise additional funds through the issuance of equity-linked debt, or debt securities, secured or unsecured, and or in current secured or unsecured loans or other debt facilities. Interesting. Sorry, I'm talking to KSB people. Okay. Yeah, so basically it looks like they need a cash infusion, right? However, we've not obtained any comments or entered into any agreement with respect to financing from strategic partners, and no such transaction with a strategic partner is imminent. Although 4 of 6 strategic partners who are investors in the company have invested in 2 occasions, there can be no assurance that any of these investors will continue to invest in the company, and we have no current agreements with any of these parties or any other strategic partner to invest in it. Hey, Knockers, what's going on? Okay, fellas, once again, not an economics guy, all right? There is a streamer for that. The stock guy is very good at this kind of stuff. So, I think it's important. So, the article said that they're hemorrhaging money, and they basically said, no, we're hemorrhaging a ton of money. Now, you would do that for the sake of transparency, right? To be honest, right? But also, if I was running a business, I wouldn't want to admit that my company is hemorrhaging cash. So, I think it's important from an economic standpoint to understand why you would say this. Why would you say this in literally half the value of your stocks? Why would you do that? And honestly, that's the question I'd be asking. Why would you do this? If anybody has an idea, why would you want to be transparent about how much money you're losing if you're a publicly traded company like that? The SEC forces you to disclose stuff like that. They have to avoid misleading investors. I mean, personally, I think honesty is the best policy, right? Like, yeah, you don't want to lead people on. That happened once in the late 20s. They didn't end well. Check your link. It's from the SEC. They state that a dedicated mission on Falcon 9 costs $45 to $50 million. Also, they sold a ton of stock in this filing. Okay. Yeah, you have to allow investors to make informed decisions. Also, just because they're burning money doesn't mean that they will always be the case. See SpaceX. Yeah, exactly. Hemorrhaging cash might mean that you're incurring a little bit of technical debt. You know, it takes a lot of money to get stuff done, especially in spaceflight. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that throwing money at the problem is going to get things solved fast, because that's definitely not the case. But there is definitely a financial hump that you have to get over to be a successful spaceflight company, right? But yeah, interesting. It seems like someone within the company was a little too loose, lip-synced ships and got their facts wrong, and the company was worried that the publication would be able to prove the information came from someone who should know, so they issued corrections to avoid lawsuits. Yeah, it seems like maybe there was a leak, Sox, and this published article was based off of hearsay, and they published it anyway, and they didn't want it. They were forced to. Their hand was forced because they didn't want to mislead investors. It might be a matter of ripping the Band-Aid off. They said that they expect this burn rate to go up. They don't want to drop that news by surprise on investors later. Yep. Interesting. Yeah, but do you have to issue a statement like that if some random news organization gets your numbers wrong in your favor? I think so, Mad. Yeah. If you don't correct the record, you will get sued into oblivion, and you'll also go to jail. The Securities Exchange Commission is a government body that's designed to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. They know Ponzi schemes happen, which is probably why they don't like cryptocurrency. Not saying that every cryptocurrency is a Ponzi scheme. Don't get confused. But some of them are. And crypto's not a bad way to do things, now that I'm thinking about it. But you get what I'm trying to say, at least I hope. BitConnect! That's what I'm trying to say. Might be a matter of ripping the Band-Aid off. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and despite this, there's a Bernie Madoff here and there. Yep, and Sam Bankman-Fried, etc., etc. I think they had to. I think their hand got forced because. Okay, fellas, I have an idiot question. This is me asking you guys. You tell me here. EJ, space and rocket revenue. I have an interesting question. So, hold on one second. Okay. So, okay, so if somebody just publishes an article, like, what's stopping me from just publishing an article saying that, X company's stock is, they say it's good, but it's actually not, and then literally forcing a company to be transparent like that? What's stopping me from basically getting a company to force themselves to admit, like, that. Oh, I suppose that's accountability, right? Like, in this regard, the journalism protects the investors, right? Like, I was gonna say, what if there's a really successful company and you say, oh, they're on the verge of bankruptcy, and then that basically forces them to be transparent with their financials if they're a publicly traded company, and then you could make an informed decision off of stocks based off of that. Is there any, like, that doesn't sound ethical? They will probably sue you out of house and home. Yeah. Libel. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm just trying to understand the economics of, like, or the social economics behind publicly traded companies, I guess. You don't have access to anyone. I think the publication has access to someone. Also, libel suits. God, I'll be honest with you. That's one of the reasons why I don't usually share insider information with you, because there's literally no way to verify it, and a lot of it is misinformation. There are people out there that work in the industry that purposely spread misinformation all over the place. They purposely say stuff just to see where the information goes. I don't repeat any of that. The buck stops with me. Everything that you hear about spaceflight in regards from me is my own opinion on things. It's my logic extrapolation, which is why I back up all my opinions with well-researched kind of criteria, I guess, if that makes any sense. You need to go off what's been said, so it's not just you saying it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the first step is to be in a position where you can make such claims to get the attention of a company. Yeah. The financial reporters have to walk one hell of a narrow tightrope to be able to report. Yeah, it seems like there's a whole check and balance to this thing, which is actually kind of cool. That's pretty neat. Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's actually a pretty well-rounded out system. Interesting. Today I learned. And if you regularly make claims about companies that you invest in, the SEC will visit you and not the company. Interesting. I wore this for the Virgin Galactic mission today, dude. Did you see the Italian League? The Italian League is about to exist in space. SEC doesn't like pump and dumps. Interesting. I couldn't see you on NSF. You were hidden. Yeah. And the corporate investors need publishers to make information public so they don't get insider trading changes. Yeah, so, okay, it's kind of there's a whole hierarchy to it. That's cool. I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, like I said, that's why the Security Exchange Commission exists in the first place. So if I'm remembering correctly, that is because of the 1929 stock market crash. That's why the SEC exists. So how did that happen again? I forget what the economic conditions for the Great Depression were, but I'm pretty sure the SEC exists because of whatever was going on there. Another note worth adding is that before they filed the SEC form, they lowered their Blue Water Sat from operational altitude to get a 10 megabytes per second 4G test, and then they raised it up again. Some people are calling them out on this gesture. And even with all that regulation, stuff still happens. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, straw that broke the camel's back. Interesting. SEC 10K report will tell you everything you want to know about a company's finances. Interesting. Now, fellas, this is only for publicly traded stuff, right? Or is it for private companies? I think it's only for publicly traded, right? Like, as long as I'm asking stupid questions. Okay. So, like, something like SpaceX doesn't have to report stuff like that. But if somebody sells stock in SpaceX, that has to get reported, even though it's a private stock, it's not publicly traded. Does that work like that? Or is it just for publicly traded companies? Sorry, I'm learning. Give me a second. I'm usually the one teaching here. No, you don't have to. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes very, 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 very much sense why Elon does not want to take SpaceX public, and why it would make more sense to spin off Starlink into a publicly traded company. That would make more sense, because you don't need some bonehead investors trying to short you all the time like Tesla. The light bulb just went off. Could you tell? Okay. All right. I get you. I'm picking up what you're laying down, chat. Thank you. Which is why we know that Tesla is ridiculously overvalued while we don't know anything about SpaceX. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Did you see what happened with the NACS today? I know that NACS is the charging port. I don't know anything. I don't know anything more than that. SEC 10K is for public companies only. Worth reading if you want. I suggest for Boeing or Lockheed. Interesting. Elon wants to be able to test Starship rapidly without worries that explosions will devalue the company. Bingo. I mean, yeah. Part of the reason why SpaceX has had that fail-forward mentality, drummer, is, is because they're a private company. You know, there's no. Can you imagine if like a Starship exploded and SpaceX was publicly traded? What would the shareholders want? The shareholders would say just use Falcon 9 because it works. And then you'd literally get inadvertently you'd get a rocket that's designed by committee, which would suck. Yeah, that would suck. Yeah, that would be awful. The only problem is when Starship explodes Tesla tanks. No way. I hate people so much, dude. I don't, but jeepers creepers. Oh no! That's people stupid, man. Oh my goodness. Oh, naps. Interesting. Yeah, it's why there's check valves in the system for if a stock jumps too high. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I got you. It's a little clearer for me now. Like, don't get me wrong. I kind of know some things, but I don't know it, you know? Some headlines I see: Electrify America, Blink to add Tesla's NACS connector to their EV chargers, and Polestar will also adopt Tesla's NACS charging port. But most likely, its SAE announces it's setting NACS standards. Rocket designed by committee. Didn't that happen in mission mode? I wanted mission mode to emulate real life, Platinum. I think I may have done that a little too hard. Learned a good lesson, though. Seriously, my goal with mission mode was to A, challenge myself, and B, learn more about how this whole thing kind of comes together, right? Dude, I learned so much about how rockets are tested, why they're tested the way they are, how you go about thinking about architecture, what needs to be engineered first, like the development cycles of rockets. I learned so much from mission mode and researching stuff to be better at mission mode. It's given me insight that no one else has, unless they've worked in the industry. I'm serious about that. I really, that really put stuff into... The picture became very clear on how the whole industry kind of goes together, based off of us prototyping and testing mission mode stuff in Kerbal, which is actually really cool. I failed miserably, but the thing is that, you know what? So do these actual companies. Look at Astra, for instance. I mean, Astra failed miserably. They didn't care. They're like, all right, we'll just make another rocket. It's fine. You know, like, props on them for being like, nah, it's good. This is fine. Do you think this new hot staging method for Starship will work instead of flipping it? I think this is actually simpler, T-Man. You don't need any separation hardware except for a hold-down clamp. Think about it, dude. You know, Elon said that it's about a 10% mass increase. And I saw a lot of people saying, how could it be a 10% mass increase just from hot staging? That's stupid. Well, it's not. It's not, actually. It's a really smart idea. Hot staging makes it so Starship does not need ullage propellants during staging. That is a lot of extra mass. That is a lot of extra mass. All right? Because part of making sure a rocket is working correctly is making sure the second stage engines, in this case the Raptors, are thermally conditioned properly, and it's easier to do that when you're under the acceleration of a force. So it's easy for the first stage to do it because gravity. It's easy for the second stage to do it because the first stage is accelerating it. And then there's the whole separation mechanism. That's a ton of mass. How are you going to move a 100-ton thing away from a 200-ton thing, right? What type of separator machine do you need to do something like that? It's quite easier to just cut holes in the interstage and fire the engines and then separate, right? All the separation equipment, all the push rods that they need to separate this thing correctly, it's too complicated. That's so much extra mass to super heavy. So much extra mass. I could absolutely see how less ullage propellants, less separation equipment could end up equaling way more delta V. Way more delta V. Page 36 and beyond will be of particular interest. Okay. I'll check that out. Ford switching to Tesla's charging standard to gain access to the supercharger network. This is not new news, Forge. That Jim Farley and Elon had a Twitter Spaces conversation like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah, no, that's cool. I told you, Elon's a Ford guy. If he didn't own Tesla, he'd be buying Ford. I'm 100% confident. He's never said a bad thing about Ford. It's because Ford's awesome. Can you show us examples of the two methods? Yeah, sure. Give me a second. I'm just catching up with chat. No pushers, no flick, depending on the first stage. Yeah, dude, I absolutely believe 10% more delta V by just hot staging. And it's simpler. It's literally simplify, add lightness. Colin Chapman, man, he was a race car designer for Lotus in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But he's right. Elon also has echoed his words in another way, saying the best part is no part. That is 100% right. And it's absolutely applicable to rockets. Very important. How does hot staging affect booster reuse in your opinion? Well, Super Heavy is going to need some type of flame trench built into the interstage. I'm serious. They're going to need a deflector in the interstage. Now, Soyuz does that with the top bulkhead, which is already basically dome-shaped. Right? And so, guys, we're not talking about the rocket engines firing for like 5 or 6 seconds inside of the interstage. This is hot staging is only for like a fraction of a second. Basically rocket ignition to separation right after that is maybe a second. So you are going to need some type of vent and a flame deflector. But yeah, it's not... If they can get the rocket exhaust to kind of channel out through the interstage, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. I don't think it'll affect reuse in any way, shape, or form. But you have to also take into account that you really can't put components up on top of Super Heavy's bulkhead anymore. Like your grid fin actuators, they have to stay there. They have to cover those up with some type of deflector. Which is, I made a joke in chat, or in Discord, when this information came out, basically saying SpaceX will put a flame diverter anywhere but underneath the freaking launch pad. It's true. Anywhere but the launch pad. That and any future crew mechanism would essentially be a hot stage and need those adjustments anyway. Yeah. Concrete rain. Yeah, right. Honestly, stainless can deal with the heat very well, as long as the alloy can handle it. Yeah, Blue, if the pressure is going somewhere, you can, and it will, when the rocket engine fires, it's going to create a vacuum, and all the hot air will get sucked out the interstage. Yeah, the thermals shouldn't be too bad, but you're still going to need something to protect the grid fin equipment. There's still going to need to be something that directs flow out the vents, because there's equipment up there. There's batteries and the grid fin actuators, and the batteries to operate the grid fin actuators, right? But yeah, it's interesting to kind of ponder. Oh, I think I've sussed out what's wrong with my bike having starting issues. I think it's a dead fuel pump. The bike starts fine when it's been sitting in the sun or just after the tank's been filled, i.e. there's pressure in the tank. As soon as the bike's been running for a while, the pressure drops and the vacuum alone isn't enough to overcome the resistance of the dead pump. Give me a second. I'm troubleshooting in my head. Do you have an electronic fuel pump on your bike, Tessa? Is it still Carby's? Carby's mechanical fuel pump, electric fuel pump, what is it? Is it fuel injected? You have a carburetor with an electric pump. All right, pause that. Let's finish talking about Starship. Yeah, I don't think it's the fuel pump, dude. When a fuel pump goes dead, it goes dead, and you will not get any fuel. You won't get any. It's not like it's gonna pull. It's not gonna siphon it through the fuel pump, unless that motorcycle engine makes an insane amount of vacuum. Meaning you'd need to start with the thing revved to the freaking end of time. There's no way you're going to create enough vacuum to pull that fuel through. I don't know that, honestly. Check the fuel tank, dude, and check to see that the pickup in the fuel tank isn't full of crap. There's a sock in the fuel tank, most likely. I'm just guessing, it's a bike, but there's a sock in the fuel tank, and if the schmutz from fuel clogs that thing up, when your fuel gets low, right, all the schmutz will get in there and it'll wreck your fuel. It won't pick up as much fuel. Your flow rate will go to hell. Bikes have a vapor scavenging system. They could easily do steel covers like they do with the COPVs just in the interstage. Yeah, I think that the stainless will be able to take it. It's only, guys, you got to remember, like, okay, think about it like this. You have a flamethrower. You have a Flammenwerfer, right? And you have a steel plate. And you go psh, for about that long. Is that going to do anything to the steel plate? No, probably not. And even if it does, right, say it heats it up, right? Starship's going to separate, and that means the top of Super Heavy is immediately exposed to incoming low-pressure laminar flow. It'll cool off instantly. Instantly. And in that case, the interstage, the entire interstage, because air can flow into the interstage and then flow out of relief, which, spoiler alert, most interstages have that anyway. Not as crazy as like a hot staging vehicle, but there are pressure vents at where the interstage meets the top of a tank on most rockets. Like SLS has them in the inner tank and on the forward skirt. There's little vent lines to make sure that no air gets caught in there on the way up. Starship will separate. It's only going to get introduced to an insane amount of heat really, really quick. And, getting exposed to the incoming air from Super Heavy, that shouldn't be that big of a deal. Once again, it's directing the flow to make sure you don't get an overpressurization event inside of the interstage. That's when it's gonna have problems, because the pressure is what's gonna get you. And check the fuel pump isn't getting clogged. Remember, the tank is above the motor, so still some gravity in play. Yeah. Tessa, take a picture of your bike from the side. Go into the shed, take a picture of it, come back. I need to look at it. What is that, Forge? Bro, I didn't find anything to do earlier, and I joined a Venus exploration conference, and they were asking SpaceX if they can do that. Oh boy. Wondering if the gas tank is going low pressure and the vacuum is fighting the pump. It's possible. Does hot stage means the second stage fires while they are disconnecting? No, synonymous. Hot staging is when the second stage fires while it's still attached. But it's, don't get me wrong, they're not sitting there with the second stage engine just shooting flames out at the first stage fuel tank, an oxidizer tank. It's only for a split second. Hot staging will literally look like it's separated and then the engine will fire. It happens literally in about half of a second. They fire the rocket engine, and right when the rocket engine turns on, it separates. Literally, the overpressure event is what's propelling it away. But that also does require you to put vents in your inner stage because you don't want to overpressurize your inner stage. Here, I'll show you. So Titan 2, hot staged. And here's what happens if you overpressurize the inner stage. They learned this in the 60s. Watch this. Yeah, see, you don't want Super Heavy to do that. So that's why Titan ended up putting relief channels in the inner stage. And if you look at any Titan booster, because you don't want that, you don't want it overpressurizing like that. That's no good. If you look at any Titan booster, right above the U in United States, there's a bunch of holes in the inner stage. There's a bunch of circular holes. That's your relief. That's where the pressure goes, because they tried hot staging these without those blowout panels, and the entire inner stage delaminated because the inner stage overpressurized. Look at all the gas in there. See that? Now, actually, if I'm looking at this right, that does have the blowout panels. See them right there? 1, 2. That does have those blowout panels, but it looks like it wasn't enough. Yeah, so you don't want it to do that. That's no good. Yeah, if you're looking to reuse your first stage, you probably don't want the inner stage delaminating like that every time. Delamination's bad, okay? You shouldn't delaminate your inner stage, okay? Literally, the only real problem could be flash boiling any propellant near the top of the stage, which itself is unlikely, as the stage would be under acceleration. Yeah, exactly. The propellants will be down towards the bottom. You're going to heat up the ullage gases a little bit, Blue, in which case just open the vent lines. Like, I say this like it's some easy thing to do while the rocket is flying, but that's the basic logic flow, right? Yeah, Titan hot stages. Yeah, you can see there's the interstage vents. And then you can see the precise point where it overpressurizes. Now, Super Heavy has a very short interstage. Keep in mind that the back end of Starship is basically the interstage where the wings are attached. So the interstage actually rolls with the upper stage, similar to the Saturn V. But the Saturn V ejected its interstage. Starship won't be doing that. So you basically have a Titan with just the blowout panels, so you don't have to worry about something like this happening because Super Heavy, once again, does not have a big interstage like Titan. And the SpaceX probably figured this. I guarantee you there's some SpaceX engineer that looked at this and said, well, the interstage blew out. That's not good. Wait, we don't have an interstage. This is a much better solution. If I had to guess. Yeah. Thanks. I was confused about what it is. Why are they doing this? Sorry, I'm trying to follow. Yeah, no problem, Synonymous. It's all good. They're doing it because it's simpler, right? It's simpler. With Falcon 9, you have push rods that literally push the second stage away, right? So think about it. Think about what you have to do to get the second stage ready to get the second stage to fire, all right? So first of all, we'll get into air starting rocket engines here, okay? So how do you air start a rocket engine? Well, first and foremost, you should probably make sure you have fuel line pressure and oxidizer line pressure, right? Obviously, you want to make sure your engine's fueled, right? That makes perfect sense. You know, if you don't have fuel and oxidizer in your rocket engine, it's not really going to go anywhere, right? But, you know, that seems like, obviously, EJ, but that's a lot harder of a problem than you might think. Why? Why is it a hard problem? Well, when you stage, so first stage engine shut down, then you separate your second stage, and then you go to fire your rocket engine. Here's the problem. you're in microgravity, right? Because where the first stage separates from the second stage, you're already going fast enough to counteract the force of gravity, even if it's only for a little bit. You're in free fall, essentially. What happens to a liquid in free fall? Because the vehicle, synonymous, is no longer under acceleration, all the propellant goes forward because you basically stopped accelerating for a second. So all the fuel goes forward, but you're trying to fire your rocket engine. And you definitely don't want your rocket engine to ingest ullage propellants. Rockets keep the fuel tanks pressurized on board, most rockets, using some type of what's called an ullage gas. What is an ullage gas? It could be anything. It depends on the rocket. On Starship, it's gaseous methane in the methane tank and gaseous oxygen, or GOX, inside of the liquid oxygen tank. On Falcon 9, they use helium. Helium is their ullage propellants. Falcon 9 has helium tanks inside of their main fuel and oxidizer tanks. And as the rocket's going up, right, helium gets released into the tank to basically force the liquid to stay down. Now, when you stage, not under acceleration, that helium gas starts to mix. Not mix, but kind of, it looks like a snow globe, actually, if you really want to know. SpaceX showed a picture of it a long time ago, but here, I'll show you. It looks like a snow globe. See, this is coasting. This is the second stage coasting. See all the droplets? That's liquid oxygen. If you turned on the rocket engine right now, you would be screwed. Because floating around with the liquid oxygen is helium. And if your rocket engine ingests helium, that's basically asphyxiating your rocket engine. It's basically choking it. That's not good. That's like doing this. That's not good. Helium is non-reactive. It just heats up. You need something that combusts. Helium doesn't combust. It's an inert gas. So staging, right, is a complicated thing. So how do you keep the rocket under acceleration to make sure that you don't ingest helium or you don't ingest a gaseous propellant, right? How do you do that? Well, Falcon 9 does that with those push rods that push it away, right? And that's enough to settle the propellants to fire the rocket engine so that doesn't happen. It's short enough time to make sure that this doesn't do that, right? That's also the reason why they throttle down the first stage right before main engine cutoff to make sure that deceleration isn't enough to unsettle your propellants. Hot staging eliminates the need for this complicated balancing act the entire time, right? So with Falcon 9, first stage has to throttle down, then the first stage shuts off, and then you separate, right? And you have to stage right after separation or your propellants will become unsettled. Right, and then the second stage ignites. That's a lot of a big sequence of events. With hot staging, right? With hot staging, your first stage starts to throttle down. You fire the second stage, and let go. That's it, and then the first stage shuts off. It's much simpler. You don't need all that separation mechanisms. You don't need all of that stuff. There's no need for it. The engines are going to push you away just fine. And because the first stage engines are still super heavy, still going to be firing when Starship's engines turn on, you don't have to worry about unsettling the propellants, which means you need less ullage propellants. That is a huge mass gain. And what do I always say, dude? The less rocket that you have on your rocket, the further your rocket will go. If you have more fuel on your rocket, less rocket on your rocket, the rocket will go further. It'll have more range. You have a car that's more gas tank than car, it's going to go further. Pretty straightforward stuff, right? And it's way simpler. You literally just turn the engine on and let go. It's not nearly as complicated. You shut down the first stage, separate, ignite the second stage, settle the propellants, blah, blah. You don't need to do that. The rocket's under acceleration the entire time. Your propellants are already settled. Just fire it and let go. The X-57 just got killed by NASA? What? All right, Tessa, let me take a look at the bike. Give me 1 second. The X-57 project creates paths towards electric aviation. Well, that's not good news. Budget's tightening? Yeah, Max, I've been a little worried about that. I've been watching the space science committees. And I won't report anything until there's something to report. Let me put it that way. NASA is ending its experimental X-57 Maxwell all-electric aircraft project without flying the prototype airframe due to a variety of technical issues and time constraints. Well, that blows. I don't understand the justification for canceling a program when the prototype hasn't even flown. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Literally just wasted everybody's time. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud? Alright, let me see. Most of this is covered by the cowl. X-57 needed some redesign to its engines and wings, but the committee found it will take a lot of time and money, so they just killed it. That's the tank. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, Tessa, I'd just shine a light in the tank first and foremost and make sure the pickup in the tank isn't clogged. Do that. I mean, how much does a fuel pump cost for that bike? It can't be very expensive. The blue pipe is coming from the reserve position. I would need to have this in front of me to be able to really look. Can't actually see from the pickups from the filler because there's baffles. I think your pickups are getting clogged, dude. And the only reason, because you said it works fine with a full tank of gas. So there's crap floating around from most likely bad gasoline, and then when that crap hits the pickup, right, it's going to get clogged up in there, but if you fill it back up, it's going to float away. That's my guess. Because fuel pumps don't just stop working, and I understand your vapor system. There's another way to feed, but I mean, the fuel pump could be bad, but I need to understand how that vapor system works for the fuel to feed correctly. It also doesn't work when the tank is hot from the sun. It works when the tank is hot. So Tessa, if you went and started it right now, what's going to happen? It wouldn't start because the tank is cold. Replace the fuel lines. Replace the fuel lines. It sounds like how old? Well, let me look at those pictures. How old are those fuel lines? This is why I've been thinking it's the pump. The pump makes no noise and the bike only starts when the tank is hot or the tank is full. Tessa, how old is this bike? Also, what the heck is that? What kind of footwear is this? It's a 94. That's a quick siphon. What are those? Yeah. Tessa, what I want you to do, take the fuel line off of the carbs, literally detach the fuel line from the carburetors, and get like an extension tube and put it into a bucket. Then crank the bike. See what happens. Do that. So, when you have a problem like this, we could sit here and we can guess fuel pump this, that, but you have to go through every component. All right, so doing what I just said, I mean, the bike won't do anything. I would probably say get a jump pack for the battery because you're going to be doing a lot of cranking. You got to verify that you're getting fuel to the carburetors. If you start it and you go to start it and nothing comes out, your fuel lines are clogged. Or it's the fuel pump. You'd have to go even further. So then what you could do after that is take a jump pack, right, and take the fuel pump off and make a connector that connects to the two leads on the fuel pump, positive and negative or positive and ground, and then verify with 12 volts that your fuel pump is working correctly. Literally just attach it to a battery. It'll work. And then see if that moves fuel then. Like put the inlet in a bucket and the outlet in another bucket and just see that the fuel pump works. If the fuel pump does fuel pump things, your fuel pump's fine. If it moves it around. If it starts whining like it's probably not fine. They shouldn't make much noise. They should just go. That's the noise it should be making. Like a clock almost, but faster. Now, if the fuel lines flow fuel and the fuel pump is working correctly, there's nothing wrong with those systems. That means it's something in the carb. You got to if that's the case, your jets can be getting clogged. The carburetor jets, they get clogged. It happens. Fuel isn't as clean as you see it when it comes out of the pump. There's all kinds of soot and leftover crap in it. You'd be surprised what's in gasoline. It's not. It looks clear like when you put it into your car, right? It ain't. It's not. No. It's super dirty. There's all kinds of sand and crap. The refineries can't get all of the dirt out of it. I mean, it did come out of the ground. They can get most of it out, but that's why you have fuel filters, etc., etc. Oh, I know. The old bike has clogged jets. Okay. Hey, Smoke. It could be the floats. Farm, it could be the needle and seat, too. Yeah, could be the needle and seat in the carburetor as well. Tessa, I would say do what I said. Check your fuel lines and the fuel pump first. Why do that first? It's literally easier than rebuilding the carburetor. But rebuilding a carb shouldn't be too bad. Those carburetors can't be that complicated. Rebuilding a carb is not as hardcore as everybody says it is. You literally just open the thing up and you have a parts kit and you find the parts that are in the parts kit on your carburetor and you literally replace them and put it back together. It's that simple. It's a little bit of a tedious task, but it's not that big of a deal. I would say try that, because now if you do all that troubleshooting, you test the fuel lines, you test the fuel pump, right? You test the fuel pump pumping through the fuel lines, right? So that's the first thing you do. Just literally undo the carb, crank the bike, and see if it moves fuel. That's it. If it does move fuel, right, that means it's the carb. because you just tested everything right there. If it doesn't flow fuel, you need to test the fuel pump. You can hook the fuel pump up to anything that's a 12-volt battery. You have a 12-volt drill, literally hook it up to the leads, it will work, because 12 volts. Simple as that. The amperage might be a little bit different, but that's not a problem. It's fine. You're only doing it for a second. As long as it has 12 volts, you're okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. You don't want to run 100 amps at 12 volts through the fuel pump. This kills the fuel pump, but I doubt you have anything that can do that. Right? So, test the fuel lines with the fuel pump attached. If it doesn't work, test the fuel pump by itself. If that doesn't work, your fuel line's busted. Or your fuel pump's busted. Replace it. I'd replace the lines too. Those lines are old and the bike's from 94. I mean, like I said, fuel pumps can't be that expensive. And just get a couple of carb rebuild kits and then you're good to go. Fuel pump relay? Well, Red, he said the bike runs, so that means the relay is doing something, right? The bike runs when the tank is hot, so I'd assume that the fuel pump relay is not the problem. I made a mistake with my car, too. I used up the brake pads until now I have to replace the front discs, too. Alexis, you introduced too much heat, so if your brake pads go away, your brake pads basically ablate. They ablate off. It's actually friction that makes them grind down, but they basically move off in the form of dust. They don't actually ablate. The rotor will ablate if it gets too hot. Fun fact, and then you'll warp the rotor, but if you put too much heat into it. But yeah. You got to keep up with car maintenance, dudes. That's important. Yeah, farm fuel is like Kool-Aid now, dude, compared to fuel from 20 years ago. Yeah. It's freaking, you might as well be putting like freaking White Claw on the bike or something. It's about the same in terms of turbo impulse junk. Ethanol. Chinesium pump is about 25 pounds. OEM is 90. Buy the OEM, Tessa. Don't Chinesium. You're going to have to replace it later, and you'll end up spending more than 90 pounds buying another one, getting another one shipped, and it's a waste of time. Just buy the OEM stuff. Smoke, do you have a car question regarding what you're talking about? Is it true that you should never run your vehicle when it is almost out of gas? Yeah, because you pick up all that crap that's in the tank, Smoke. Never let it run empty. I mean, don't get me wrong, it might be fine. Your fuel filters might catch it. But then it might not be fine. Then you're spraying crap into your engine. You're spraying dirt, rocks, sulfur, all kinds of crap that will break the engine. The only thing that should be going into your engine is nitrogen, oxygen, and gasoline. That's it. Nothing else. That's why there's filters everywhere. I was actually thinking about bypassing the pump and going for the gravity feed if the pump's bad. Well, Tessa, I would start with the fuel delivery systems, right? The stuff that gets the fuel to the carburetor first. And then if you gravity feed into the carburetor, then it's your needle and seat, most likely. Or the jets are clogged. It's probably both of those things. If you let the thing sit with gas, and believe me, this happened to the Coronet. You let the thing sit with gas, the gas will literally just destroy your carburetor. Like if you're storing a car for the winter, guys, that has a carb on it, take the carburetor off for the winter, plug up the intake manifold, take the carb off, and purge that thing of fuel. Because the ethanol fuel will ruin a carburetor. From what I can tell, Starship is trying to use the flip to help separate the upper stage away from the first stage. But on the first flight, the COPV plumbing blew out, meaning no separation. So what they could be doing is, with the hot staging, is have the engines create negative pressure directly on the clamps, making a triple redundant system. That's just a theory. I mean, that doesn't really jive too well with simplifying and adding lightness, Blue. But maybe. People say this because you're pulling crap from the bottom of the tank. Yeah, exactly. Smoke, you'd be surprised how dirty gasoline is. It is dirty. Quite literally. Dirt fills up in your gas tank over time. Dirt, soot, sulfur, all kinds of crap. That's why we have fuel filters everywhere in the fuel lines. So, because you don't want dirt going into the motor. That's FOD inside of the motor. This kills the motor. Yeah, never let it run dry. That's very bad for most cars. Like, very bad. Because, yeah, then you get all that crap in the fuel lines. And you could plug up a fuel line. And then your car doesn't work. In the UK, we still have no ethanol fuel. And with the fuel tap, I can turn off the fuel and run the carbs dry easily enough. And there you go. What I do with my gasoline-powered equipment is cut cut off the fuel to shut off and let them run to exhaustion to purge the lines in the carb. That works too. Yep. Is that why Caroloc's engines are so sooty? No, that's a combustion byproduct, Nova. The rocket fuel is super refined to make sure it doesn't have all that crap in it. The soot that comes out of Falcon 9 is a combustion byproduct because, so, okay, think about it like this. Say you have, like, well, I'm making up numbers here. Say you have 5 oxygen, right? And the ideal for 5 oxygen molecules to get a perfectly, about as efficient as you can go, right, is for 5 oxidizer, you need, let's say, 10 fuel, all right? And to make sure that you extract all the energy out of those propellants, right, 2 fuel need to combine with 1 oxidizer, okay? And that will get you the most efficient explosion. Now, let's think about this for a second. Combustion byproducts are coming out of the back of Falcon 9. There's unburnt fuel coming out of it when it flies through its own soot doing supersonic retropropulsion. Why? Why would they purposely have 4 fuel for every 1 oxidizer? So some of the oxidizer ignites, and then you have extra fuel that comes out the nozzle. Why would you do that? It's very inefficient. Why would you do that? Seriously, just ponder it for a second. Why would you want that? Who's still driving a carbureted car as a daily in 2023, though? Same case for fuel injection systems, dude. So you're running fuel rich. They do that for a couple of reasons. One, you're using all of the oxidizer. So you're getting the most amount of power that you can out of the liquid oxygen that's delivered. Think about it. If you have 4 fuel for every 1 oxidizer and you need 2 fuel to combine with your oxidizer, you could be absolutely sure that if you spray 4 fuel for your 1 oxidizer molecule, that it will combine with 2 of them in some way, and you'll get a big, nice, healthy explosion. You're using all of the oxidizer to combine with as much fuel as you possibly can. You're using all the oxidizer that gets delivered. That gives you a more energetic burn at the behest of efficiency. First stage engine. It's not about efficiency. First stage needs a lot of thrust and it needs to get up there very quickly, right? So efficiency be damned. You're actually more efficient. You actually will have more delta V if you have higher TWR for first stage. Fun fact. So they run fuel rich. The other thing about running fuel rich is if they tried to run the engine what's called at stoichiometry, right? So basically delivering 2 fuel for every 1 oxidizer. First of all, you're never going to get it exactly right because molecules are kind of hard to keep track of. It would be like juggling a handful of marbles and making sure that no marbles fall. You're never going to get it exactly right. You can get it close, right? But running fuel rich and having unburnt fuel come out of the bottom of the motor keeps it cool. Why? Because there's extra fuel, there's extra hydrocarbons coming out of the engine, and those hydrocarbons will absorb the heat instead of the rocket engine absorbing the heat. Keeps the nozzle from melting. They run fuel rich for temperature. And to make sure it's a nice energetic burn. That's why all that soot comes out of it. It rolls coal. It runs fuel rich. That's what rolling coal is with a diesel truck. Rolling coal with a diesel truck is literally running fuel rich to make a ton of power with your diesel truck, but you shoot out most of the fuel out of the exhaust. But you use all of the air that's coming into that truck. Same idea. It makes sense for the rocket. Rolling coal with a truck is kind of a dick thing to do, but it is kind of cool. I definitely see how that can be cool, but you know. Does that make sense, dude? How do you clean a tank with sugar in it? Buy a new fuel tank.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Hey, Bareback, what's up, man? Hey, Jay at work at VJ, and I thought you would like to know, we had the NSF stream playing in the hangar while waiting for our internal system. Really appreciate the coverage. It was fun. Thanks, man. Did I do okay? I did as best as I could. I think I did okay, you know. I wish I knew more about the mothership and the spaceship from a technical standpoint, but there's just not that much documentation in the public out there, so I was kind of like winging it. Sorry, I've been hanging out with Sawyer too much. But yeah, I tried to talk about the cut-down nozzle and the hybrid rocket as much as I could because I think that's the coolest part. That is the freaking coolest part to me. The cut-down nozzle to create pitch-up moment is one of the smartest ideas I've ever heard for like suborbital rocket travel. That's really, really smart stuff. You did good? All right, cool. But anyway, Bareback, I appreciate those words. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed your show today, dude, you know? Better sorry than Geeson? Yeah. Hey, Grizzly, congratulations on your recent nuptials. Thank you, sir. I'm so baffled by the ethanol regulations. Starting last year in Canada, all gasoline must be blended with that stuff. It is now illegal to sell ethanol-free fuel. And they have the audacity to refer to your owner's manual to ensure compatibility with blended fuel. Lovely. I think if Virgin Galactic keeps a monthly cadence, they could compete with Blue Origin since New Shepard doesn't fly as often. Maybe. I mean, Blue will be back, and in greater numbers. You will put corn in your gas tank, and you would like it. I don't want corn in the gas tank, Chase. I want dinosaur juice, dang it. And some lead. Wait. Maybe not that second part, but the first part, though. Corn! Nebraska here, take my corn. I don't want your corn. Not for my car. It's the sweet corn is probably really good, D-Pick. I'll take some sweet corn to eat. Not put in the car. I don't want to do that. I'll take South Dakota shale oil. Nice. What happened in New Shepard, Hando? It actually had a they had nozzle burn through on a New Shepard flight last year, and the BE-3 decided it didn't want to be a BE-3 anymore, and they had a capsule eject from the pusher stage. There were only scientific experiments on board, and honestly, if there were people on board, they would have been fine. But so what happened there is Blue released a statement a little bit after saying that they were trying to push the envelope with the engine, and they pushed the envelope a little bit. They basically pushed the engine a little too much. The freedom started to come out the side instead of come out the bottom. You don't want that with a rocket. The explosion, you should make an explosion, but it should be going down. If it goes to the side, yeah, that's not good. And they basically said, oh, we were trying a new testing regime with this flight, and the testing regime proved to not be good. We're always trying to push the envelope. Which, I mean, I guess I understand that, but I have this thing about doing tests during operational revenue missions, or just operational missions with spacecraft. Yeah, that doesn't usually end well, unless you really, really understand what you're doing when you change a variable on the vehicle. Now, that's not to say that the engineers at Blue are incompetent or anything. Absolutely not. I will say, guys, from the insight that I do get from the industry and from learning about, rockets in general, it is very easy to overlook the minutia. It's very easy. All it could take is just one sensor saying it can take 400 degrees Fahrenheit instead of 439, and the whole thing will explode. Sometimes the nominal windows for stuff is a lot smaller than previously understood, right? You start trying to get more thrust out of this engine, eventually you're going to push to its theoretical maximum, and if you get too close to that, bye-bye. you shouldn't really try to shoot from the hip like that. That's not a good idea. Hey Jasper, 42-month resub. Thank you. It's a model made before catalytic converters, so it'll run good on regular gas. What do you say? Is it the new Bluesmobile? Fix a cigarette lighter. Guessing that tanked the stock. Blue is not publicly traded. But on the other hand, you're not gonna know to push. You don't know where the. You're never gonna know for sure where the failure point is for a rocket engine unless you actually do it. Right? You can have a theoretical analysis, right? And I would contend to say that if your analysis is closer to where you think it's going to fail to where it actually fails, the better, that's better engineering, right? Because engineering, fellas, is not just being able to make like a bridge stand up, right? You know, everybody's, if you know, this is a saying. The saying is, if an anybody can get a bridge to stand up. An engineer designs a bridge to barely stand up. Well, that's not entirely true. With statics, you really want to have a huge factor of safety there. What an engineer does is understand when and where that bridge is going to fail. Because if you have a bridge, right, and maybe we should play polybridge. If you have a bridge that's only designed to handle cars that are 5,000 pounds, and you make a bridge that's capable of rating 15,000, have a 15,000 pound vehicle drive over, like a semi-truck or something, are you a bad engineer? Well, no, the bridge didn't call for 15,000 pounds. But on the other hand, do you want to make the bridge collapse under 5,000 pounds of load? If a car drives across the bridge that's 5,001 pounds, is the bridge gonna break? No, you don't rate it for, if your 5,000 pounds is what you need to go across said bridge, you don't rate it for 15,000. But you don't want to rate it for 5,000 either. There's a nominal mark in there, like 10,000. Maybe meet you in the middle. Rate it for 10,000 pounds. That way you know it's never going to break. Right? Does that mean a 15,000 pound truck couldn't drive across this bridge that's rated for 10,000? No. But also another thing that you have to understand with statics in terms of bridge is load cycles. Right? If you have a bridge that's rated for a car that weighs 5,000 pounds, and you have a car that's constantly 5,100 pounds drive over it, the bridge is not going to last as long. Why? Because every time that car goes over the bridge and it stresses things out, the metal will bend and flex because it's not designed for that type of weight. Bridge won't last as long. Same with roads, to be honest with you. Anybody here from Michigan? Your roads suck. Yeah, sorry. I don't mean to be mean. Your roads are trash. You know why? Because you don't have weight limits on your trucks. These big, heavy trucks eat the freaking road because they're too heavy. Because there's no weight limitations on your trucks, so your road goes through a bunch of stress cycles a lot faster, so the roads need to be repaired all the freaking time. And for some reason, they decided to make it out of concrete where it snows, which is just... Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but there you go. There's your reason. Right? So, when you engineer something, it's better to know exactly where that's going to fail and when it's going to fail. That's the whole point of this discussion. You have to know when and where it's going to fail. The more analysis and the more understanding you have. So you do the math out and say, it's going to fail. This bridge that's rated for 5,000 pounds, if I drive a car that's 5,000 pounds across it 5,000 times, then it will need to be replaced. And then you do that exact thing and the bridge starts to show extreme fatigue to the point where it's going to collapse because it's been through too many load cycles after 5,000 passes, you're good. That's good engineering. Getting your math to corroborate what happens in real life. And if you push it too much and say you wanted your bridge to have a 5,000 pound car cross 5,000 times and it crosses 2,500 times and then the bridge collapses, that's bad. That means that's not good engineering. Because, remember, it all goes back to that phrase. Anyone can make a bridge stand up. An engineer gets a bridge to stand up just for what it needs to be. A better way to say it would be an engineer gets a bridge to stand up for just precisely what that bridge is intended for and nothing more. Right? It's about understanding what you made. It's about knowing. And like I said, with blue, if you push the envelope and it fails miserably, well, there's something you didn't take into account there. And that means stuff got out of your nominal projected windows and it failed under a condition where you thought it wasn't going to. That requires more analysis and more testing because you risked it, you sent it, and it didn't work. Now you have to figure out why. And going back and troubleshooting it is a lot more difficult than just doing it right the first time. With that being said, with rocket science, it's very difficult to do it right the first time. That is extremely difficult. Like, I'll be honest, guys. I'm amazed more commercial companies don't have rockets that just blow up on the pad. It is so incredibly hard to get this right the first try. It is ridiculous. Like, I mean, even Astra. You know, everybody's like, Astra has no idea what they're doing. Dude, to get that far and to make it into orbit with one of their rockets is pretty damn freaking good. That's pretty freaking good. That's not easy to do. Not many people have done that. You guys got to remember, Astra has sent stuff further into space than Blue Origin. Just saying. That's not a mark towards Blue either. Blue will send something into space eventually, and it'll be probably bigger than Astra's entire launch complex, which is cool, but good stuff. Hey, Arsenal, what's going on? Snake. Hi, off topic. I like your shirt. Thank you, sir. Tessa, I prefer to build something that lasts. I prefer to build something that lasts. It all goes back to that bridge thing, right? And it all goes back to how we were playing Polybridge. I didn't play to have the bridge have the closest point of failure, to get your bridge to make the least amount of bridge for the least amount of money. I made a bridge that gets its load factor as far down as humanly possible for the cost allotted. And in that case, using all your budget is key. Because in bridge engineering, if you engineer it to be stronger and its average fatigue during a car crossing is lower than every other bridge, your bridge is going to last longer. Hey guys, guess how our highway bridges are rated? Like on federal highways in the United States? They're engineered to last a long time. They built them that way. Funny how that works. And it's only now, literally 70 years after some of these bridges were built, that we're seeing some of them start to... Crazy, right? They built that stuff to last. They did it on purpose because they know if a bridge collapses, you're economically kind of screwed, especially if it's on a major artery. I mean, look at Philadelphia. There you go. Most of them are well past their design date now. Once again, we're into the safety factor for load cycles on a lot of bridges, Aqualex. That's a problem, and it's gonna be a bad problem when it happens. I mean, we already kind of start to see it happen, but it's gonna start happening more often. We don't do something about it. Funny how that works. Anyway, I mean, you got to remember they went fallout on those damn bridges. They knew that in a nuclear war, you'd need the infrastructure to be as preserved as possible. So I guarantee you a lot of those bridges that were built in the 50s are designed to withstand like a nuclear blast. They're probably not, but it's a little bit of hyperbole on my part. It's highly impressive how fast 95 has been opened back up. It's almost... Nah, never mind. I'm not saying that. It's easy to do when it becomes everybody's problem. Let's say it like that. They were designed for 40 to 50, not the current 70. I mean, Aqualex, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying they're built to last and nothing more. Don't read into it any more than it needs to be read into. We should probably replace them. Just putting it out there. Or start building railroad tracks, baby. Like, pick one. Pick one. As long as you do something, right? As long as you do something. Just do something. You know? Yeah, that repairing 95. Yeah, okay. No, be quiet. I'm busy. If you call filling the bridge gap in with a bunch of dirt and paving over said dirt, repairing a bridge, then yeah, they repaired it really quickly. I agree, Tessa. There's a reason why I like classical engineering. Or classical architecture. That stuff's built to last. We had this conversation the other day. I love Roman architecture. I love Greek architecture. You know why? Because it's built to last. Cost be damned. It's built to stand the test of time, and it has. Even the heck, some of the aqueducts from the Roman times are still working. That's a piece of infrastructure that's lasted 2 millennia. Just saying. Hang on. I gotta send out a message. That wasn't Bree. I didn't just hang up on Bree, I swear. It was my sibling. I hung up on her. Yeah. What? That's not the same. Don't lie. You don't hang up on her. She's a nice lady. I will do what I want. All the fountains in Rome are still fed by the same aqueducts and pipes. Hailing frequencies open. There's Persian stuff before the Romans still in use in some places. Yeah. Okay, man, it's not just Roman architecture. It's just, yeah. Stuff is built to last, man. Oh. I just wanted to congratulate you on the Virgin launch coverage. Hey, thanks. How did I do? Good? Bad? Question? Had to be close to being the same. You don't live in Tennessee. Yeah. Roman concrete is the strongest and most resilient concrete known to man. Seriously, we can't even replicate it. They actually, Tessa, they very recently figured out why it's so damn strong. And you know, like we read the study on stream. We don't know if that's for real. Or like we don't know if no, it is for real. We don't know if they meant to do this, but the way they mix the concrete makes it so the concrete actually, if it cracks, it reseals itself. Yeah, it's like a self-sealing fuel tank, but with concrete. Yeah, that's why the Roman stuff lasts, because it doesn't crack. Yeah, quick lime. Exactly. The concrete, if it starts to get a stress crack in it, the crack will come and then it'll just reseal it up. That's why it lasts so long, which is actually super freaking cool. Like, and once again, who knows if, like, you think they knew? Or do you think they were like, nah, this is a good, this is very strong? You think they knew? I don't know. I suppose, you know, get an archaeologist to ask. Yeah, Patine, indeed. Only took 1,600 years to rediscover it. They probably knew it worked, but not exactly why, right, Uncommoner? Like that's my thing. They probably knew that it was super strong, but they didn't probably. I bet you they did. I bet you they didn't know that it was like, oh, they made this form of concrete that can just heal itself, right? Like. But on the other hand, the Romans are pretty damn smart, man. They were pretty damn smart. They could have a 1 degree pitch on an aqueduct that's like 30 miles long. Constant 1 degree pitch, which is not easy to do. That's a hell of a piece of engineering. Considering you don't have computers, cranes, heck, you don't even have a blueprint. You don't even have a drawing board. I mean, I'm sure there's probably something like that, but you get the idea. I think they noticed, sure, but I don't think they knew how long it'd last. Yeah, applied science for the win, right? Some of them knew. You think so? Actually, hold on one second. Hold on one second. Give me one second. Since they didn't have the means to mix it perfect, it's highly likely that they didn't do it on purpose because resealing comes from it not being mixed all the way. So there's more unused cement to react with the water when it gets into the crack. Oh. Yeah, see, like, that makes sense. Like, yeah, they... It's so funny. Lack of standards is what made the concrete so... That's funny, man. I was actually gonna, call my sister. She went to school for archaeology, so and anthropology, so she would probably know the answer to that question. I'm telling you, she knows ancient civilizations like I know spaceflight, which is actually pretty cool. And Roman concrete didn't have 10 tons plus vehicle driving over it twice per minute. Yeah, Cagner, load cycles. Statics load cycles, dude, which is kind of dynamics, but you get the idea. Hey, do you know Jenny's number? Nope. No, VDub, I do not. Oh, I got it. Yeah, I got that number on the wall. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I got... did you just make a funny? Good one. I'll take a scotch with water. Hold the scotch. Did you just make a joke, Bobby? Yes, I did. Good one. Damn you, Tommy Two-Tone! Counter argument: water is more destructive than a truck any day. Water will destroy an entire mountain. Don't frick with hydraulic pressure. I think you should send your sister this. It's dumb. No, I'm good. Who wants a house in Rome? I'm gonna sell it. Yeah, I'm good, Razzie. Nope. Everybody funny. You funny too. Water funny too. Related to this is why so much Victorian era structures are still around. That's right, Den. It's a good song. Oh, my sister wants to know what the question was anyway. Do you think the Romans knew how strong the concrete they made was? Like, do you think they knew it would last 2,000 years? Okay, cool. We'll see what she says. So we can say that's that's what she said. Anyway, that's my... Never mind. Anyway. You guys want to play games? We should play games. Roman structures that survived are all compression loading. Compare that to modern concrete works, which is mostly stress-reinforced concrete taking shear loads.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Yeah, gosh, so it's the arches, the viaducts, like arches on top of arches, right? She says most likely they didn't mess around. Hey, Halo, 24 months, 2 years, let's go. And they had slave and legion labor to solve any building issues. Well, there you go. Yeah, she wants to know if that's what chat said. Alright, I'm just telling her what we knew. Roman concrete. So when are we going to have a Q&A? No. I mean, they were building with concrete for centuries. We've only been building for the stuff for a little over 100. That's true. Yeah, right, Caveman? Yeah. My stepdad and his brother just got back with all of my younger brother's army stuff, and he's brought his dark green saloon Volvo 850 T5R with him, and I'm geeking out about it. Chad, imagine geeking out over a Swedish automobile. She goes, yeah, that. All right. Yep. Yeah, V-dubs. I've actually, the article that you link, I've actually read that. I've read that article. Yeah, it's interesting. What books have you said? It's a brick with a turbo 5-cylinder. So, serious, you're geeking out over this. Okay. All right, that's cool. I know, guys. I'm just being a jerk. I know it goes fast. That's fine. But it also, dude, we never got that style of trim for 850s over here. 850s were cars that, like, teachers drove when I was younger. That's the car that's like basically a minivan. I know the T5R is fast. I know, but it's still funny to me. Like, that was the car that your math teacher drove. I like my Volvo. It's sensible. It's a sensible car. Do the headlights have wipers? Yep. Mission rules killed cars in the U.S. Something like that. Yep. I never saw the point of that. Well, you know, joking aside, Volvo is actually, those cars, and you know, you think that Teslas are safe? Volvo are the people that really kind of pioneered, like, safety for automobiles. And I'm not talking, like, you know, to the point where it's neutering the car. I'm talking stuff like, you know, a 3-point belt, like airbags, crumple zones, stuff like that. Volvos were kind of the first cars to do stuff like that, believe it or not. Volvo actually, that was their selling point back in the day. That's how they sold cars. They're super freaking safe. And Tesla kind of does do the same thing nowadays, which is, I mean, because they are. Teslas are super safe because they're low center of gravity. They really, really, dude, if you can flip a Tesla, you got some skills. Whistling diesel notwithstanding. If you give it 20-foot wheels, it's really easy to flip it over. Just putting it out there. It's nice being able to breathe, though. I don't know about you, man. I love the smell coming from my truck. It smells awesome. You can't breathe it, but it does smell good. Classic ad where they drove one off a building. Yep. I remember that ad, Orion. Yeah, a 60-mile-an-hour collision is the same as dropping a car off of, what is it, like a 10-story building or something like that. The impact speed is similar to a 60-mile-an-hour collision. Good advertisement. Also, you get to see a car get dropped off of a building. It's pretty smart advertising, just saying. Those damn tricky Swedes with their cars and their furniture. Italians make better meatballs. There, I said it. I have a Swedish meatball when you could have a spicy meatball. It also had rear-facing seats in the boot, which led to some uncomfortable journeys looking directly at the cars in the behind. Yeah, American Estates, that's your word for it. American Estates been doing that since the 60s, man. Oh, yeah. Actually, some American station wagons from back in the day actually had seats on the sides, facing towards each other, like a picnic table almost. I would say Italian meatballs are just different, not better. No. More ULA footage. Ooh. Butter and gumballs. Good combo. Yeah, we saw this at the beginning of when I switched over to Space News. Oh.
And liftoff.
And liftoff.
United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy Rocket, carrying NROL 68 for the National Reconnaissance Office.
We can just...
And liftoff of the
Hey, you guys remember how I was talking about how all interstages have vents to be able to alleviate pressure? Watch. Boop. See? It's the second to last one, Dukas. It happened. SpaceX opened the wall to the inventory tent and revealed one of the water deluge plates up close. Ah, oh, cool. Neato. Did you see this more bad news about Vega C? Is the last one a heavy? There's no more regular Delta 4s, dude. It's only Delta 4 heavies from here on out. And it's been like this for like the past 3 or 4 Delta launches. We have one left that's launching next year. That's the last Delta, which sucks. I still think Delta is a fantastic architecture. It's really good. They really could have gone somewhere with it, which kind of sucks. Yeah, WGS-10 Dukas last year was the or no, that was was that 2 years ago? I forget when WGS-10 was. It's too many launches. That was the last launch of a Delta 4 Medium Plus. It was a Delta 5-4M Plus is what it's called. When the last Ariane 5 launch? It actually rolled back into its hangar, from what I understand, German. It's going to be a couple of weeks, I think. I could be pulling that one out of my tail. They did go somewhere with it. They went to space. Okay, let's see. A static fire test of a Vega Zafiro 40 Z40 second stage conducted on June 28th ended in failure. This will likely result in the delay of the vehicle's return to flight, which had been scheduled for late 2023. Let me read for a second. Despite the failure on the test stand, the company did stress that the new throat insert, which was the original root cause of the Vega failure from last year, which is being supplied by Ariane Group, was not the cause of the failure, stating that it had showed a nominal performance. All of these issues between Vega and Ariane 6 has caused the ESA to fly Euclid, Hera, EarthCare, and possibly 4 Galileo and Sentinel-1C on SpaceX. Oof. Oof. Orion, you can link it, but I'm not going to look. Now, fellas, what did I just tell you about engineering? What did I just tell you about putting it on the test stand and it doing something that you didn't understand? If you put it on the test stand and it does something that you didn't want, something is wrong. Now, in this particular case, the throat on that Zafiro 40 on the actual flight last year failed. They had nozzle burn through, and it ended up... So, like I said, with a rocket engine, you want the fire coming out the bottom. Like you want it coming out the bottom. You don't want it coming out the sides. If it comes out the sides, it turns into a plasma cutter. And on the Zafiro 40, as far as I can tell, that plasma cutter cut the entire back of the SRB off. Yeah, the nozzle burn through literally separated the entire nozzle from the casing of the SRB. At least that's what I could tell from the footage. I don't know if that's exactly what happened. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, though. So, it looks like they tried to fix that problem with a throat insert. So the throat insert worked fine, but the vehicle still failed. It failed 40 seconds due to an anomaly that caused a reduction in overall pressure performance on the motor. You know what that tells me? That tells me the problem they thought they fixed was not the actual problem. They changed something that works just fine. It seems like they changed something that wasn't the root of the problem, that was a symptom of the problem. Does that make sense? This is for Ariane Space. So it's the Vega rocket. Vega rocket here is what we're talking about. Where's the footage for that? I have it on a stream VOD actually. So they put it on the test stand, they changed a couple of things, and it still failed. Fuel pump issues with an SRB, Caveman? A Zafiro 40 is an SRB. Vega is all solids except for the last upper stage. It's, I believe, the fourth stage is a hypergolic liquid for precise orbital insertion. The stuff that actually gets you up into orbit is solid rockets. You have a P-120C, and then a Zafiro 40, and then a Zafiro 10, if I'm remembering right. That was a joke. Oh, the bike. Yeah. Ariane 5 is set for the 4th. When's the 4th? Of July. Okay. It's on the 4th of July. I'm sorry. Sorry our friends over in Europe don't care about freedom. We don't launch stuff on Bastille Day, you jerks. Window doesn't open until 5:30 p.m. Creeper, what do you do on the 4th of July? Particularly towards, when the sun starts going down, right around 5:30 p.m. What happens on the 4th of July? There's something that happens on the 4th that happens around 5. I'm not gonna be covering that. I'm gonna go watch some fireworks and drink beer, baby. It's not smoky at all, geek. What are your thoughts on the historic disclosure? What is that? Stephen Kerr podcast with testimony that could change some things. I'm not familiar with it, CalStar. I don't know what you're talking about. July 4th, Secession Day. Stay mad. Fireworks, but the last time I looked, the sun doesn't start at 5:30. Doesn't get dark until like 10 p.m. Yeah, whatever. That's when your divorce goes through. Oh, thank you for the insightful comment, Dr. Longballs. I'm just kidding, man. What is this freedom thing you're talking about? Don't worry, you wouldn't understand. I'm sorry. I thought this was America, he said, with the Italy shirt on. Man, what are you talking about? We lucked out. You might still be part of the empire. You're proud of being a subject of another country? Good luck with that. It's sad. Things seem to get worse and worse for Ariane 6 and Vega Cs. COVID, man. It's COVID. COVID screwed up the supply lines. Now, don't get me wrong, Erudite. I know everyone uses the supply lines as an excuse. Not necessarily an excuse, but basically everybody says, well, I can't do it because supply lines. The supply chains for rocket components are very, very easy to clog up. Why? Rockets don't launch very often. It's not like they're it's not like they're mass producing parts, right? So you basically stop making them. The thing about it is that once you stop doing something, it's hard to start up again. It's hard to restart a factory. If anybody plays Satisfactory, you know what I'm talking about. What happens when your factory runs out of power and you idle it? It's really hard to get the whole thing going and efficient again. I said in 2020 that the entire industry basically hit a speed bump. It's going to take some time. I mean, look at SLS. SLS was delayed by 6 months for the same exact problem. You know what I mean? Thankfully, they declared it vital jobs during COVID, so work still kept going, right? But it's, the Europeans, and it was not the case. And the thing is that your supply chains for your rockets are a lot longer than ours because you ship your rockets across an ocean. We don't. See what I'm talking about? It's difficult to keep the supply chain going, let alone stable, when your launch pad is like 4,000 miles away from your production sites. That's a hard thing to do. Laserman, it doesn't even truly get dark at night here, just dusk at around 1 to 2 a.m. Yep. Norway moment. CalStar, a week or so ago, there was a conference of military witnesses to black budget projects that involved jaw-dropping physics and Epstein Drive type stuff from The Expanse. And taxpayers have been paying for it for almost a century. Worth a look on YouTube. I mean, CalStar, people ask me about UAPs all the time. It's been super prevalent for whatever reason in the last couple of years, and I'll tell them the same thing. I'll tell you the same thing that I told them. You guys probably aren't seeing aliens. It's probably something like that. It's probably some type of defense system or experimental space plane. Now, where that technology came from, don't know. Bob Lazar, Element 115. I have no idea. Who knows? It is kind of strange, though, that he predicted the island of stability literally 20 years before it happened. That's a little sus. But who knows? Like I said, don't know where the tech came from, but it's most likely us screwing around with some tech. Yeah, it's probably it. Well, back, you played a multiplayer game where you and a couple of other people were building a space station. Does that ring a bell? A while back. Sounds like Stationeers, MacDuff. About Arian 5. Okay, I got it. Okay, you guys are still on about time zones. Just so that conversation doesn't keep going in chat, it was a joke. I was kidding. A joke. I just want to drink beer on the 4th of July and watch fireworks. Not necessarily at the same... I was kidding. It's fine. It's okay. Did you play Space Engineers? I've played it a couple of times on stream, dude, but I never really played it like power playing it like we've played Satisfactory, which we should probably go and play, actually, while we're here. We did a good amount of Space News. Sorry, guys, I'm not like up to snuff for playing games right now because I've been going since 9 this morning because I did the NSF stream, and I'll tell you, man, that stream takes a lot out of you. It's really hard to manage manage a stream like that. So, yeah, let's. I think I said I would play Stellaris today. My brain is literally mush, so I'll probably play Satisfactory. We'll find some time for Stellaris sooner rather than later. Last Arian 5 was on the 4th. Yeah, I got it. I got it, man. I've said I've got it like 3 times now. I've had two huge cups of coffee already today, dude. I don't want to push it. What are rockets sometimes, if not giant fireworks? Today's not a good day for learning. Yeah, my brain is kabuki.